The U.S. natal Pluto at 27 degrees 33 minutes Capricorn will experience a Pluto return for the second time when the transiting Pluto peaks at 5:06 p.m. on July 11th, 2022. This means that for the second time in this return sequence, Pluto will be returning to the exact same position of the zodiac where it was on July 4th, 1776. It is important that you understand the cosmic significance of this transit. Since Pluto returns take 247 odd years to occur, this is the first Pluto return sequence that the United States has ever experienced. The Pluto returns occur in 2022 on February 20th, July 11th, and December 28th. One final near miss by 21 minutes will occur on October 15th of 2023 before Pluto finally moves on. Then it will be hundreds of years before the next occurrence. In a mundane chart, Pluto signifies the power of the masses. It has to do with regeneration and transformation. The higher vibration of Pluto will show areas where improvements and better organization can come about, while the lower vibration indicates social upheavals, power struggles, terrorism, or corruption. Pluto in the sign of Capricorn is about regeneration and transformation of governmental structures and organizations. Well, that is a big part of the equation. Pluto in both the natal and the July 11th return charts is retrograde, which pushes the energies in the direction of returning to the core values that were present when those energies were cast in 1776. Those values are a big part of what makes this country so unique in the world and worth saving. This bi-wheel has the U.S. Sibley natal chart in the center wheel, and the transiting Pluto return chart wrapped around it in the outer wheel. The U.S. natal Pluto is in the second house. The second house deals with finances, the assets of the people, banking systems, capitalism, currency, price stability, the U.S. Treasury, wages, and wealth. In other words, the people's money. The second house is the area of greatest emphasis, since that is where the exact conjunction of natal Pluto and the transiting Pluto is occurring. A conjunction is usually a positive aspect, which should ultimately bring positive transformation to the second house issues. Remember, however, that transformations of financial systems may make for a bumpy ride. Pluto is opposing the 8th house. The 8th house also deals with money, other people's money. Specifically, the financial areas include Social Security, taxation, insurance, interest rates, the IRS, public money, and retirement funds. The 8th house also covers national policy, socialized medicine, epidemics, and totalitarian regimes. Since this Pluto return places all the power of a natal Pluto conjunct to transiting Pluto opposite the 8th house, let's look at the 8th house more deeply. We've already seen the huge hits on our retirement plans, hikes in interest rates, and threats to our monetary system. These were mentioned during the first Pluto return in February. There is another 8th house matter that we haven't really talked about much: life insurance. In January 2022, the head of an Indianapolis-based insurance company, One America, said that the death rate is up a stunning 40% from pre-pandemic levels amongst working-age people. We are seeing right now the highest death rates we have seen in the history of this business. Not just at One America, the company's CEO said. The data is consistent across every player in that business. What we saw just in third quarter of 2021 and we're seeing continue into the fourth quarter of 2021, is that the death rates are up 40% over what they were pre-pandemic. Just to give you an idea of how bad that is, a 3 sigma or a 1 in 200 year catastrophe would be 10% increase over pre-pandemic. So 40% is just unheard of. The CEO also reported that most of the death claims being filed are not classified as COVID-19 deaths. Talk about 8th house issues, death and insurance. Now let's move on to examining the other aspects in this biwheel. Take a deep breath. This will be the most complex portion of the analysis. Applying the Pluto Return chart to the U.S. natal, you find a mutable Grand Cross formed between both Neptunes, Venus, Mars, and the Moon. A Grand Cross consists of 4 squares and 2 oppositions. With the squares forcing action, it can be very stressful. The key is in balancing the oppositions. A mutable Grand Cross deals with trying to balance many different issues and maintain focus. The planets in the aspect pattern are the transiting Moon in Sagittarius in the 1st house, natal Venus and transiting Mars conjunct in Gemini in the 7th house, natal Neptune in Virgo in the 9th house, and transiting Neptune in Pisces in the 3rd house. In order to better understand this complex pattern, let's break the Grand Cross up by the 2 oppositions. The first opposition, the once-in-a-lifetime Neptune opposition sequence, we've looked at before. Transiting Neptune in the sign of Pisces is in the 3rd house of communications. Natal Neptune in the sign of Virgo is in the 9th. The 9th house deals with the judicial system, higher education, foreign affairs, propaganda, and media censorship. Americans are continuing to see misinformation being spread about. At a high level, the planet Neptune is all about illusions and delusions. When the transiting Neptune is in a challenging position, such as an opposition, it creates confusion and deception. With the transiting Neptune in the 3rd house of communications, media, and social media, the opposing natal Neptune in the 9th house is encouraged to spread deceptive political propaganda. Throughout the pandemic, we've been looking to the planet Neptune for insights regarding healthcare. Amongst other things, Neptune deals with hospitals and hospital care, mental health, large public institutions, secret cabals, and conspiracy. While epidemics fall under the 8th house since it deals with death, the orchestration and deceptions that we've been seeing are more associated with the planet Neptune, the ruler of the 12th house. Natal Mercury in the sign of Cancer is in the 8th house. It is positively aspecting the Neptune opposition. Mercury in Cancer is about compassionate communications, while the 8th house deals with socialized medicine and epidemics. Let us hope that Mercury's influence on the Neptune opposition will open up the communications and we'll all get a clearer, more compassionate picture of what is going on. The second opposition is between the Moon and Mars conjunct Venus. The Moon in the 1st house deals with the emotional attitudes of the people. The Moon in Sagittarius indicates that the people want to know the truth. The Moon exactly opposes natal Venus in the 7th house, which deals with foreign policy, wars, and treaties. Venus in Gemini deals with written communications. In this case, negotiating treaties. The Moon opposing Venus is dealing with balancing the needs and concerns of the American people against international needs and concerns. The Moon is also opposed to Mars in the 7th house. Mars is the planet of military action. Might makes right. But Mars in Gemini has a more analytic, intellectual view of warfare. With the conjunction between Mars and Venus separating, and Venus stronger in the opposition, let's hope for a strategy of negotiating from a position of strength instead of more kinetic warfare. Saturn in the sign of Aquarius is in the second house of finances. Saturn is also conjunct the third house cusp, which is ruled by Mercury. Saturn is trine both Venus and natal Mars. Venus, Mars, and Saturn are all in air signs, and air signs prefer mental solutions to problems. So these planetary energies would reinforce using contracts or treaties to resolve the international issues of the seventh house. Saturn is sextile the moon, which is also a positive aspect. The combination of Saturn in Aquarius in the second house, sextile the moon in Sagittarius in the first house, will bring a more conservative perspective to the truth the American people are seeking, especially as it relates to finances. To summarize thus far, this Pluto return is taking dead aim at the critical issues of our time. Pluto transforms and regenerates governmental structures as it moves through this cosmic return and toward the sign of Aquarius. The Mutable Grand Cross deals with war and pandemics. The focus of the pandemic axis, the Neptune Opposition, deals with its influence on media, communications, and institutional and governmental agencies, especially in the area of healthcare. The focus of the war axis, the opposition between the Moon, Venus, and Mars, is on international wars and the warmongering efforts by both U.S. and foreign players. Negotiations and treaties are a more peaceful solution preferred by many. Now that we've covered the more significant aspects in this Pluto return chart, let's take a look at the influences of what remains. Natal Jupiter is conjunct natal Venus in the U.S. chart. The traditional benefic planets are Venus and Jupiter. Benefic means a beneficial influence. So this conjunction has always been especially supportive in our foreign relations, both by our diplomatic efforts through the influence of Venus and financial support through the generosity of Jupiter. Mars is in the sign of Taurus in the fifth house. It is sextile the conjunction of Venus and Jupiter. Mars in Taurus generates a slow, methodical, martial energy regarding national risks and a general hesitancy to jump into a full-blown war in Ukraine. While the United States government has rushed to provide financial aid for the Ukrainian conflict, the overall energies of Venus and Jupiter are pushing towards treaties and resolution. These energies support the direction that the Mutable Grand Cross initiated. In this chart, the natal sun represents the well-being and life energy of the country. The planet Mercury is making a very tight conjunction with the natal sun. Both planets are in the sign of Cancer, adding a caring and nurturing feeling to the planetary energies. As we've mentioned previously, the seventh house represents war, treaties, and foreign relations. America has always been a caring nation, helping other countries in need. This conjunction between the Sun and Mercury will create a strong energy to drive the natal Sun towards mediation and treaties to resolve international issues such as the Ukraine. Squaring this positive conjunction is the natal Saturn. Saturn is exalted in the sign of Libra in the 10th house, which it rules. So this is a very strong position. Saturn represents government agencies, conservative attitudes, and restrictions, while Libra represents balance, working with partners, and diplomacy. The 10th house deals with the presidency and government. A challenge to the resolution of these various international conflicts will be the position taken by the White House and its governmental bureaucracies. The strength of Saturn, representing the U.S. president, could overcome the other chart factors which indicate an ultimate diplomatic resolution. By supporting the Ukraine with arms and aid, the U.S. president is encouraging Ukraine to continue a kinetic war. Many Americans and our European allies are more inclined to resolve the situation through negotiations and treaties. Finally, let's look at the last strong aspect in this chart, the Jupiter-Uranus sextile. While it is operating somewhat independently of the other aspects, its outcome is one that most of us can relate to directly. The planet Jupiter signifies good luck and expansion to matters of the house it traverses. Jupiter in the sign of Aries is aggressive expansion. The 4th house deals with matters of national security, agriculture, consumer goods, and housing. But sometimes Jupiter's exuberance to expand, compounded by Aries' energy to just do it, can get out of control. Positively reinforcing these energies to Jupiter is the sextile by Uranus in Gemini in the 6th house. Uranus in the sign of Gemini represents the unexpected, the mental blow, so to speak. Amongst other things, the 6th house deals with matters of economic outlook, price of housing and land, and the food industry. Americans are now facing unexpected increase in the cost of consumer goods, food, and rapidly rising housing costs. In summary, Pluto in the sign of Capricorn is about the regeneration and transformation of governmental structures. Transiting Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008 and will remain in Capricorn until it briefly transitions into the sign of Aquarius several times in 2023 and 2024. After November 20th, 2024, transiting Pluto will be in the sign of Aquarius for several decades. The conjunction of transiting Pluto and natal Pluto creating the Pluto return occurs in the 2nd house in the U.S. chart. This directs the energies along the axis of finances. The 2nd house represents the people's money, while the opposing 8th house represents money from government sources. This conjunction will shake up the U.S. financial systems, especially in the 8th house of retirement accounts. The 2nd Pluto return on July 11th adds the energies of a mutable Grand Cross. The first opposition is along what I'm calling the axis of pandemic, since the planet Neptune has figured prominently in this pandemic. And the 2 planets creating the Neptune opposition are natal Neptune and transiting Neptune. Both Pluto return and Neptune opposition are very rare occurrences in U.S. history. They are events of cosmic significance. The 2nd opposition is along what I'm calling the axis of war between the 1st and the 7th houses. This opposition is specific to the July 11th chart and is between the transiting Moon opposing transiting Venus and natal Mars. By the United States government rushing to provide arms and aid for the Ukrainian conflict, the U.S. president is encouraging Ukraine to continue a kinetic war. The overall energies of the Mutable Grand Cross are pushing towards treaties and resolution. To avoid further bloodshed, this is the resolution many Americans and our European allies would prefer to see. After the deliberations of the Constitutional Convention of 1787 were held, anxious citizens gathered outside of Independence Hall in Philadelphia. As he was leaving the building, Dr. Franklin was asked, "Well, doctor, what have we got, a republic or a monarchy?" With no hesitation whatsoever, Benjamin Franklin responded, "A republic, if you can keep it." Personally, I think the great American experiment is worth keeping. Thank you for watching. If you would like to be notified of future videos, please subscribe and click the notify bell icon so you'll know when new videos come out. If you enjoyed the video, please click on the thumbs up icon.